Well, the Georgia Bulldogs have opened up as a 6-point favorite over the Alabama Crimson Tide. Uh, I, I mean, there's a couple things to say here. First of all, when Ryan Curley and I were leaving Bobby Dodd Stadium on Saturday, listening to the Auburn game, I told Ryan, I said, this game, Georgia's going to be favored by about a touchdown, maybe about 6 to 7 points, and you can get this game at 6.5 or excuse me, 6 or 6.5. I don't know about seven. Seven's kind of the magic number. Anytime you get to a score like that, your likelihood of winning seems to go higher. But there's definitely a difference between six, and I thought the game could wind up at three if Alabama sort of calmly took care of Auburn. Well, we saw that wasn't the case. So I just I'm not surprised by this. I still think Georgia should win this game. We got a long way to go before they even kick off. But you're 6%, excuse me, anywhere from six, you're talking about a three-quarters chance, excuse me, 2/3 chance to win the game, based on what's happened in the past in college football. At four, which is where this game was hovering before the Auburn game for Bama, Georgia would have only been about a 6 in 10 chance. So I nearly forgot. I'm going to put this in right now. You can go to Dawg Post right now. I got a link down below. $2, 2 months. Now is the time to sign up. We'll see you on the website. Not the end of the world. You'd rather be favored than not favored, that's for sure. But, having watched Alabama play Saturday, the bulk of that game, what I got the real chance to watch was the second half. And they're going to have some real matchup problems with Georgia for sure. And we don't know if Robinson is going to be hurt, stay hurt for Alabama. There's some problems there for the Tide for sure. And the question is, can they get it, fixed in time? You look at Nick after the game, very happy to win, a very different Nick Saban than we've grown accustomed to seeing. And we've seen Alabama play well, and we've seen them play not so hot. It was not so hot against Florida, Auburn, LSU. What do those teams have in common with Georgia? They're big physical teams. And I think for Alabama, the worry I would have right now if I were Bama is that you get to become pretty one-dimensional, you're going to be in trouble against Georgia. And Bryce Young, I mean, he might be the best quarterback in college football. I mean, he it's just did some stupid stuff tonight, but I just don't know. And I'm not saying it can't happen. I don't know if you can, ask the guy to go out there and throw for 350, 400, 450 yards, win the Heisman, and carry his team to victory. That's asking a lot of a player, even with the gifted receivers that they have. I mean, Alabama had a hard time stopping Auburn's pass rush today. So, and Georgia, I don't know, it's just not kind of nothing special there. There's no one player you got to stop and all this stuff. So it's a problematic situation, I think, for Alabama in that they're not the better team. And they've not been the underdog since 15 when they absolutely rolled Georgia in Athens, but they should not have been the underdog in that game. That was crazy. That made no sense. But in the last 10 years, I think that's the only time that Alabama's been the dog. Obviously, they've lost some games. So we just kind of we don't know how Alabama will react to being the underdog. And honestly, although the Georgia fan base won't understand it, Georgia really should win this game. I mean, there are two teams right now in college football who are undefeated that matter. Georgia and Cincinnati. And I think we all know who've watched this that Cincinnati can play you tough for sure. I think we also will all admit that Cincinnati is not playing the schedule that Georgia, Alabama, etc. play. They probably played a schedule somewhat similar to what Clemson deals with each year. So taking everything into consideration is what happened Saturday. Georgia is in prime position here. If they beat Alabama Saturday, it's going to be tough for other teams that are remaining to beat Georgia. Michigan is a team that is built similarly to Georgia. They're phone booth type of team. But that's like Kentucky playing the Dogs. It's going to be challenging because they don't have as many playmakers as Georgia. You look at Cincinnati, I think we know what they can do. We also know that they can get beat, kind of pushed around a little bit. Kirby and them adjusted in that second half, and Cincinnati, besides that long run, didn't do anything in that second half against the Dogs. And then, Georgia and Notre Dame have played a fair amount lately, generally speaking, twice in the last few years. And those have been close games. I mean, let's not act like Notre Dame couldn't have won probably both those games, but they didn't. And in 19, when they played here in Athens, that game was far closer than it should have been, thanks to a Tyler Simmons. I think it was Tyler Simmons muffed punt that set the Irish up right at the end zone. They needed 4 plays or 6 plays, whatever it was, to score a touchdown. So this is going to be a challenging slog for folks who are not, named the Georgia Bulldogs, but they got to beat Alabama first. If you give them life, Alabama will come back and win. And I don't blame Tank Bigsby. I think that it is ingrained in Alabama to never give up. And, in all of the losses lately, um, this year, Texas A&M, they came back and made it close. This game against Auburn, they came back to make it a total fight. What about the game against LSU in 19? The only game I can recall off the top of my head where they were totally outplayed in every single way. There were two. The 2017 Auburn game at Auburn, the 2018 championship game against Clemson, and if you want to throw in the Mac Jones the interceptions game against Auburn in 19, you could do that too. But that's a snake pit for Alabama. They will not be in the same situation when they get to Atlanta. Georgia's going to have to play well. Alabama will have to play. Honestly, Alabama will have to play its best game of the season, and Georgia will have to play probably its best game of the season too. Kirby, after the game on Saturday, said that this team keeps getting better. I mean, a 45 nothing or whatever the score was, nothing. I know that beating is 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 proof that this team is continuing to chug it along and get them where they need to go. But 6.5, it could go to 7. I mean, the thing about this line is that the betting public likes Alabama. They want to bet for Alabama. Um, so if you if you're over a 3-point favorite against Alabama, I mean, first of all, they've not been the dog, with the exception of once in the last I was about to say century, once in the last you know 10 years. So it's longer than 10 years, to be honest. It's been since the 2009, whatever you want to call that. It doesn't happen for them, and they have earned that. But Georgia's earned being a favorite here too. Yeah, I mean, Georgia was a 1-point favorite over Alabama in Athens in 2015. The Tide was a 5-point dog to the Gators when they made Tim Tebow cry. They were a 10-point dog to Florida when the Gators won by 11 in 2008. So Nick's teams have been favored. I don't know how many games that's been, more than 100, but 1 in 100. I mean, now we're gonna have 2 in 100, and it's just what it is. But man, the interesting thing is, since Nick took over, you know, really that second full year, the only time they have been dogs have been to these teams, and these were not. They've been the dogs to the dogs twice. Now about to be a third time. They've been dogs to the Gators twice, and they've been dogs to Clemson at one point. And that was a game I was at with my wife, my first wife, still my current wife, in at the Dome, and I thought Clemson would win that game, and I was very wrong about that. I'm going to tell you that right now because that was the birth of Alabama as we knew it and know it. But that's it, and those games are 13 years ago now. I mean, that's a long time. But Georgia will be favored by slightly less than a touchdown when these two kick off in Atlanta. I don't know how Alabama will handle this. It's a good question. I don't know how Georgia will handle it. I know Georgia's fans won't believe it until they see it. They'll get their pepper spray out for hope. They're not trying to hear it. They're going full Larry Munson. But I'm going to let you in on a secret, Georgia fans. If you beat Alabama, you should win the national championship. It's that simple. And I'm sorry to disappoint you with my with my basis in reality there. We'll see you over on dawgpost.com. Thanks for watching. See you on the website.